Oh, goodness gracious. So this is the reason why I don't make a ton of like rumor videos about things anymore, is because you never know when plans are going to change. You never know when things are going to shift around. You never know when people might just be making up stuff. Now, I'm not trying to say that's the case here, but it seems like for the past couple of weeks, we've been hearing there's a Nintendo Direct at this point, and there's a Nintendo Direct at this point. It's on the 7th, then it's on the 15th, then it's on this, then it's on that. And that's kind of the reason why I stepped away from doing that. Now, we'll talk about it in our live streams because, hey, that's like the recent news that people are talking about. But I'm not going to sit here and make video after video after video talking about Nintendo Direct is coming, Nintendo Direct is coming, and end up being like the boy who cried wolf, like so many other content creators are. But I do want to let you guys know about this because recently we had an Xbox presentation that we're going to get into in just a bit. And then there's the panic that happened with what Microsoft stated or the rumors that were coming out. And then they had their Xbox podcast and ended up being like a nothing burger and a half for the most part, but there was some interesting things that we will go over and some points that I want to hit. So we're going to get into all of that here today. But before we get into it, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell for awesome videos. Now let's go ahead and jump into this because my good friend Jeff Grubb has talked about the Nintendo Direct. That was supposed to happen. I know Necro Felipe and Nintendo Prime are getting into it in terms of the believability chart when it comes down to Nintendo Directs, because that was one of the sources for the Nintendo Direct. But anyway, let's get into what Jeff Grubb had to say here, and then we'll talk about everything else. So Jeff Grubb on Twitter says, "I know no one wants to hear this." True. "But just like when the Queen died, this is real. I heard earlier this week that they were discussing moving the Direct because of the Xbox business update. I've never known the date for sure. I've only ever heard by the middle of February." So that was a question that was asked via Twitter to Jeff Grubb. And he also stated, "You may now shoot the messenger. I also said this on Nintendogs on Tuesday, but for some reason, this tidbit didn't do the rounds and get headlines." Okay, podcast is out. So where's the Direct? Okay, so all of this, once again, is the reason why. We just don't know what's going to happen. And these rumors that come out, it's always just rumors, right? Now you've got people fighting back and forth when it comes down to it, people saying, where's the Direct and all that? And it ends up just becoming a complete waste of time. And that's something that I've noticed from my many mistakes of making all the different rumor videos and things like that, is that most of the time, I mean, unless you have like multiple sources or multiple people that are saying, okay, this is going to happen at this point, you never really know when something could happen or not. Or sometimes even when you have multiple sources saying something, that doesn't mean it's going to be at that time. So everyone just needs to relax, chill, and enjoy whatever games that you're playing. When there is a Direct, there's a Direct. But guys, I want to just say this because I think some Nintendo fans don't understand this, or they simply don't want to hear about it. But Nintendo's transitioning to the next system. They don't have some type of big, massive Direct with a bunch of new Nintendo Switch games that are coming out or something. When they have their next system, that's going to either launch this year or next year. I would say that it's not going to go past next year. So Nintendo already has a bunch of games for this year. Not saying that they shouldn't have other titles, because it's a lot of Mario games and stuff like that and nothing major. But I think at this point, I think we all realize that the end is kind of coming up when it comes to the big, new, consistent games for the standard Nintendo Switch at this point, because they haven't even dated Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door or Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Those could very much well be games that dual launch on the Nintendo Switch too. So people just need to relax, understand it's the end of the generation, play whatever games that you are going to play, check out the games that are coming out if you're interested in them. If you're not, then you can play Microsoft, Sony systems, and if you don't have those, then you can just do something until there's other games to play, right? So for me, it's just kind of like annoying because I know what's going on here, and like we all know what's going on here, but some people still expect there to be some type of big Direct and a bunch of announcements. Like I got people coming to my stream saying, "Oh my gosh, it's a partner Direct if they have it." Like, "Oh my God, I'm so angry with that." I'm like, dude, what? Like, what? Like, they're going to their next system. They're going to have a big presentation for the next system with big next generation Nintendo Switch 2 games or next gen Nintendo console games. That's where all of the money in the games are kind of going to, is that next system. Very much like when they transitioned from the Nintendo Wii U to the Switch. A lot of those games that were supposed to come to the Nintendo Wii U ended up coming to Nintendo Switch. But in this case, the difference is that they actually supported the system and it was successful over the course of 7 7 years. It's been 7 years at this point. So it's time to move on. Nintendo's been moving on. Their biggest developers are working on Switch 2 games. So whenever Nintendo decides to have their presentation or have their first look event or whatever they decide to do, we'll see those games at this point. But don't expect some type of massive Nintendo Direct that's going to have a ton of different Switch games for the next 2 years or something. That's just not going to happen, I think, when you look at everything all kind of considered. But let's talk about something else here, because Microsoft recently had a podcast that I live streamed. I want to say thank you to everybody that came out for the live stream. It did really well. Almost 2,700 people that were watching peak concurrent. So thank you guys so much for that. But the information here, let's just get down to it, is that there's going to be 4 games coming over to Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5, or Nintendo Switch and or PlayStation 5, or vice versa, or whatever. But it seems like it's going to be based off of the information out there. It seems like it is going to be Switch and PlayStation 5, and it's 4 games. Now, in this presentation, or this Xbox podcast, Xbox Phil Spencer did not actually state what games they will be. He essentially stated these are all games that are over 1 year old on Xbox and PC platforms. You've got 2 games that are single player style games, and you've got 2 games that are community based online games. Now, The Verge and I think other people have pretty much stated or have leaked what games those will be. So the game is Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, in addition to Grounded and Sea of Thieves, and that could come over to other platforms. Now, they didn't say when, they didn't say how, they didn't say where. They just said, hey, look, the marketing teams behind those teams have something planned for it, so when they want to do it, they'll talk about it there. And they also deconfirmed games like Indiana Jones and Starfield coming over because of the rumors, so that right now doesn't seem to be the case. But Phil Spencer also was kind of like, hey, I don't want to rule it out ever, like never it'll come over, because obviously it makes sense. Now, essentially, this whole podcast here was them getting real businessy. At least Phil Spencer wasn't trying to be, but Sarah Bond was completely businessy and boring, talking about engagement and user rates and this and that. But she had one little nugget of information talking about new hardware for the holiday and the biggest technological leap that we've ever seen. And I find this to be very interesting that she talked about that. Before we get back to the games and what Microsoft is going to be doing and PlayStation and Switch and all that, like, they're advertising or teasing the next generation of hardware before they've even delivered games that they announced when the hardware for the Xbox Series was announced. We still don't have anything that we've seen so far when it comes to gameplay footage or release dates for Fable, right? Like, I guess Fable, we did get that, but we don't have any type of release date or anything for that. What about Perfect Dark? Where is Gears? Where are all the different games, you know, that they talked about years ago, and they're already teasing the next generation? I think that's absolutely ridiculous at this point, talking about the biggest next generation technological leap. It almost seems like they're giving up on the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, because now they're not talking about affordability with the Xbox Series S. They're talking about the biggest technological leap and all this other stuff, when they still don't have games that are still was supposed to be set for the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. Now, don't get me wrong, those games will probably come at some point. And yes, it's not this massive deal. It's not, but it just sounds a little bit weird to me that you haven't delivered on games that you announced 4 years ago or something like that, right? Or you announced, 3+ years ago, but we're talking about the next generation. I mean, that's just wild to me. And I wouldn't have done that, but you know what? I get it. Now, Sarah Bond also talked about hardware that's coming out this year as well. That could be the adorably all-digital cylinder Xbox Series X that, doesn't play physical games. It's a clear downgrade overall, but hey, it is what it is there. And the Pro controller, the new high-end controller that they're having that has like gyro and haptic feedback and all of that. So that was already leaked, right? All of their next-gen plans were leaked. Even what Sarah Bond's talking about with the next-gen technological leap, that was also leaked. Their new controller was leaked. And the Xbox Series X redesign, all cylinder, all digital, was leaked as well. So we kind of already know about that. But yeah, it seems like it's coming this year with the Series X redesign and the new controller. So yeah, we'll see about all of that. But overall, I mean, it was kind of a nothing burger. I mean, there was Diablo 4. They said that that's going to be coming over to Game Pass. But we already knew that Microsoft makes games on other platforms. And Microsoft kind of did some layer of damage control in with the truth, right? The truth is that Microsoft already makes all of these games on other platforms, so they're kind of already doing that. Now, we haven't seen it with their big first-party games, right? Like stuff like Hi-Fi Rush usually doesn't come over to other platforms, but they have put other games or games that they own on other platforms. And also, you look at it this way, and this is something that I talked about before. Microsoft has these franchises, right? They have these franchises like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment. Those franchises are not system sellers. Those franchises are just sitting there on Game Pass, rotting away, doing absolutely nothing. You cannot continue to build business within that or build up, like let's say a sequel, Pentiment 2 or Hi-Fi Rush 2, when you don't have revenue coming in. You had a lot of Xbox content creators, a lot of Xbox guys saying Xbox Game Pass pays for everything. No, it doesn't. Xbox Game Pass does not pay for everything, because if Xbox Game Pass paid for everything and everything was fine, they wouldn't have the layoffs that they had, and then Phil Spencer wouldn't be talking about how the teams want their games to be played more and there needs to be a business behind that franchise to expand. You're not just going to get money from Game Pass and it fuels every single franchise that you have. That just doesn't make sense dollars wise. It didn't make sense when I've talked about Xbox Game Pass before. It doesn't make sense now. And that's the reason why games like Pentiment, and that's the reason why Hi-Fi Rush and Grounded and Sea of Thieves, games that have maybe become a little bit stagnant or can make considerably more money on other platforms, to reinvest into those for those development teams. That's the reason why. And I said this before when it comes down to it. So I understand why games like that are coming over. We also have to look at it this way. If you look at Xbox Game Pass and you look at what the numbers are, it's stagnant. It has not had a ton of growth. They've talked around 30 something million, 35 million or so Xbox Game Pass subscribers, and that includes the converted Xbox Live Gold to Xbox Core or whatever that is. So that's not a ton. It's not like there's, oh my gosh, everyone's on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, the highest tier. They haven't really been getting a lot of new subscribers to Xbox Game Pass. For this to work and for it to fund everything and probably to be self-sufficient where everybody is good, you're going to need 50, 60, 70, 80 million plus when it comes down to it. And you're going to need them at the highest tiers, not just at that basic core as well. So, I mean, it's something that I understand. It's stuff that we talked about multiple times on my live streams and in videos. So this doesn't really shock me too much when it comes down to this. Now, in the podcast format, I felt like this was a little bit much. I don't feel that they even needed to do this. I'm glad that they did, because we got a bunch of new people to come over and subscribe and support and all that stuff, and that's awesome. But at the same time, it almost feels like this could have just been like a press release or something like that and say, hey, look, we're bringing over some games over, and our business is that we want to make sure that we do the best by our developers. And yeah, we're working on next generation hardware. And yep, that's that. And Diablo's coming over to Xbox Game Pass, and all of the Activision Blizzard games will eventually come over too. Bam. And that's that, which they kind of did on Twitter. They put it out all there on Twitter for people just to see. So, hey, it is what it is. It's content for us, so that's good. But at the same time, it just feels like, hey, you know what? Probably wasn't needed. All this panic and everything wasn't needed. But maybe they want it to be more, I would say, when it comes to like communication, right? When it comes to communication, they wanted you to see their face and they wanted you to hear their tone of their voice and let you know that, hey, this is the vibe. This is the move that we're doing here. So I think that was also part of it, which Xbox is very unique in comparison to Sony and Nintendo, who don't do stuff like this. Xbox is very different, for better and for worse at times. So what do you guys think about all of this when it comes down to it? Phil Spencer went over a lot of different stuff when it comes to exclusivity. He stated kind of like wishy-washy, like, hey, you know, sometimes there will be, sometimes there wasn't. I mean, you can get a whole transcript of what's going on. Gematsu has it. Of course, I'll have a link to the whole video. It's 22 minutes. And Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, and Phil Spencer all talked about it. So it was kind of boring, but at the same time, like, there was some good information in there, and I'm pretty sure Xbox fans are happy. Like, the core Xbox fans are happy. But if you sold your Xbox, or if you were going crazy over this, like, you really shouldn't have. Like, you really shouldn't have. You should have waited, because this doesn't really seem too crazy. But just to kind of be devil's advocate here, on the flip side, I mean, obviously you open up Pandora's box here when you're talking about 4 different games that were exclusive, that you own. These are IPs that you developed with your teams. I mean, it's one of those things to where it can snowball into other things, but I think that Microsoft understands that, because Phil Spencer even said 5 to 10 years from now, like, exclusivity is going to be more of like pretty much nobody's doing that, right? You're going to have games launching on mobile, PC, and different platforms. So I think they're heading towards that, but it's not the drastic, you know, 180 that people felt that it could be when it comes down to this whole business meeting. So it is what it is there. So what are your thoughts on everything when it comes to what we talked about with a Nintendo, in addition to the Nintendo Direct rumors and all of that, plus this Xbox stuff that's going on? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, check out my other videos right here on screen, and we will see you for the next one. Peace.